G'day folks, Jason here from the Udder Farm. We're actually on the Udder Farm property today. Great news, I'm excited. We're finally going to get to start the installation of our watering system here on the Udder Farm so we can start cell grazing our livestock, or otherwise known as time managed grazing of our cattle through the Udder Farm. So we plan doing 3 parts to this video. This being the first part, we're going to cover the setup of the cells and why we chose it that way. Part 2 is going to be the basic, there's a little bit of civil work involved in getting it ready before we start trenching and the installation of all the pipe work and the solar panel and the foot that goes into the river, which is part 3. And the first thing we had to do was determine where we wanted to run the trenching or the pipe work. And as you can see, we've got a driveway running through the center of the property. So we plan on grazing one side of the driveway and the other side of the driveway. Then we've got another area on the opposite side of the creek, and then right down to the front of the river we've got another grazing paddock. I'll talk about the areas each side of the driveway, and then I'll explain what we did there, and then I'll revert to the maps for the other. So what we had to do is we actually measured the length across from the driveway to our fence line. Then we had to walk the whole paddock and basically measure at intervals across to get the center line, and then we slashed all the way down the center line, and we done the same for the other side of the paddock as well. From fence line to driveway to fence line, we found the middle all the way along the shape that we wanted, and then we slashed down the middle of those paddocks, and that is where we're going to lay the trenching. Then I went on to Google Maps and printed out maps of my property. So that's one side of the road. What I did is I worked out the scale of the maps, then I calculated what I need down lengthwise and widthwise to roughly make that 1 acre. So each of these are 1 acre blocks all the way along on both sides of the roads. What I did then is I put watering systems, the black marks are the watering systems, and the red lines are where I plan to put in step-ins and poly braid, so I can break those cells up and move the girls through. The reason I got them right in the middle of the paddock, my watering points, is then I got the capabilities of splitting it in half and giving me the half an acre for a 12-hour period, followed by another half. And I can move them around this cell on that one watering system before I go under here. That's why it's every second, and that's why it's in the middle of the paddock. So had I gone to the end, I'd have to run a hose down, a hydraulic hose, which that's going to withstand the pressure if the cattle's walked on it. But I sort of wanted to break it down in half acre lots, try a bit of high stocking density grazing. That way I can get more selective, or should I say like non-selective grazing. And also it's handy because we're going to run the chicken tractor down the middle as well. So I prefer the watering system in the middle, and it's going to be buried 600 mil down. So if you ever want to, well, we don't plan to because we go no-till, but if people after me or purchase it after me want to rip up that ground, there's not many tilling systems that will go down 600 mil, but I don't plan ploughing or tilling. And where I can't get poly braids in because of the fence lines, like round through the creek area here, we're just going to use step-ins and walk out the poly braid around here. So they're bigger paddocks. They're about anywhere between 2 to 3 acres. And across the creek here, this side, I blew that map up, and here it is here. So it's roughly 4 acres, watering system here. So we're going to go 4 acre grazes. That could be anywhere between 5 days. So if we need to go away for a weekend, we've got a choice of bigger paddocks. And down on the river, I've got 6 acres broken into 1 acre blocks. So that was the next step. We're going to go ahead now and mark up the watering system where the upright or the riser's got to go. So I showed you the mats before. The plan of attack now is I'm going to go along with the measuring wheel, which is right there, and measure out the distances along the fence line. So that one there is 43 metres. And like I mentioned, all these are broken up into acre lots. That's what I plan cell grazing. So that'll be 2 days worth of, or a full day's worth of grazing, 12 hours each. But I think initially we're just going to graze them that 24 hours for that 1 acre. So we go mark across where we want them to put the trench and where an upright riser is going to be. I'll walk along this fence line, and as you can see, Nicole's over there. She's armed with a can of paint and she's marking out the crosses. So there she will walk along that fence line, and as you can see, we're starting here. She'll walk this fence line, and then here we go to the middle of the paddock. So she'll walk in the middle of the paddock, I'll measure out the meterage and line her up with an obstacle or a tree or a fence line on this side, and she'll put across, and that's where the poly braid will eventually go, and the watering system or the trough will be underneath that poly braid. So we've got them every second paddock, so they'll be moving from there, they'll have water, into this one they'll have water. We'll go ahead now and we'll mark this paddock out. Maybe come a little bit more forward, Dale. About another metre, please. Yep, right there, Dale. Put across on the ground. Thank you. Right there. Cheers, Dale. Right with me, Dale. Got another 20 foot. We'd appreciate you guys hanging around to the very end. So that's the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 where we do the civil work, and obviously part 3 naturally does follow. So have a good morning, have a great afternoon and an awesome evening, guys, wherever you're watching this from, and we'll catch you later on the civil works.